We begin with the latest developments in the talks to end the war in Ukraine. Now, over the weekend, Secretary of State Marco Rubio joined Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and others for talks with a Ukrainian delegation. They all met in Florida to continue discussions on the Trump peace plan, with key issues like territorial concessions and Ukraine's security still unresolved. Scripps News Deputy Political Director Joe St. George joins us now live from Capitol Hill. Good morning, friend. All right, let's start with this news that the Trump administration, they seem to be voicing guarded optimism with these latest talks. So what happens next?
Well, we really get the sense as we begin this work week, don't we, Holly, that this is a make or break moment for the peace process that President Trump so desperately wants to achieve. We had the weekend meetings between Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Ukrainian officials in Florida. A quick social media post readout from President Zelenskyy said that everything was, quote, very constructive. There are some tough issues that still have to be worked through, though. Now all eyes quickly shift to Moscow and to Russia, where in the coming hours we expect Steve Witkoff, who is really one of the president's top foreign policy diplomats on this issues, to meet once more with Russian officials at the Kremlin. We do expect a President Putin meeting to be part of that process. And really the question is, the big peace question is Russia willing to move a little here? Or are they in a take it or leave it approach with some of the thorniest, most complicated issues that remain? For one, control of the Donbas region, right? And if you're not proficient in Ukrainian geography, give or take about 20,000 square miles worth of land, eastern Ukraine, about the size of West Virginia. Again, I'm estimating here, give or take 10% or so of Ukraine's total land. Russia has controlled parts of it for several months, parts of it for several years. Ukraine has vowed to never give it up. What does Donbas region control look like long term? That's one of the big thorny issues, and it's a complicated one. As well as, what does Ukraine's military presence look like going forward? Russia has expressed concern over a Ukraine military that's too powerful, too strong on their borders. Ukraine has said they want to be able to defend themselves, and Ukraine's NATO ambitions. The reason Ukraine wants to join NATO is the military protections that would provide. Russia does not want that either. So those are the thorny, complicated issues, and those have been issues going back not just weeks or months, but years here for any peace agreement. Again, is Steve Witkoff able to get Russia to get any closer to where Ukrainians are on this very particular and very volatile issue? As far as the White House goes, they're continuing to preach optimism. The president, once again optimistic, speaking with reporters aboard Air Force One Sunday night.
They're doing well. Ukraine's got some difficult little problems. They have some difficult problems, but I think Russia would like to see it end, and I know Ukraine would like to see it end.
As far as President Zelenskyy goes, he is in France this morning, meeting with his European counterparts again on this idea of what a peace plan would look like. Zelenskyy is not with the chief of staff, though, in this visit. It's been a week of corruption-filled scandal when it comes to certain positions in the Ukrainian government. Corruption has begun to take a toll on the politics in Ukraine, and that is notably evident as Zelenskyy travels to Paris and to France this Monday morning. So massive week ahead when it comes to the prospect for peace, Holly, between Ukraine, Russia, a deal potentially to be struck by the United States or not struck by the United States or not. Again, I think it's appropriate to say all eyes on Moscow as we await this meeting with Steve Witkoff and leaders at the Kremlin. And, you know, Joe, so many questions about this topic, but one thing really quickly before we move on to another topic is, really, is Russia, do you think, negotiating in good faith? Because there's been a lot of talk in Washington and in other parts of the country that perhaps this is just buying for time, and it's really what Russia wants to see the U.S. will allow happen and what they can get away with from Ukraine, but that at the end of the day, they're not going to come to the table to sign any peace deal. Well, President Trump says that he thinks Russia wants this war to end. And after so many years of bloodshed and loss of life, I mean, who wouldn't? But at the same time, it's not as if Russia is in a position where they feel as though they're on their heels here. In fact, you could look at recent land advancements. You could look at recent corruption scandals in Ukraine. It's not as if Russia is in a position where clearly they need to give a lot here. The question, I think, is what can Steve Witkoff still get out of them? President Putin is acutely aware of the political pressures faced Zelenskyy. He's acutely aware of where their military is having a success. I mean, just last night, I was looking at some of the strikes. So there was another strike on Ukraine, 4 dead, 40 injured, unconfirmed reports that a ballistic missile was used. So as all of this talk of peace is happening, there's still bloodshed and loss of life in Eastern Europe, Holly. Again, President Trump, this is one of those issues, right? He's accomplished a lot this first year, right? Between the tariffs and the trade war and the one big beautiful bill, he's done a lot of what he's wanted to do. He campaigned on ending the Ukraine war on day one. That never happened. It's been a thorny issue for the president. He certainly would love it before the end of his first year is officially up. That's on January 20th, 2026.